Welcome to the HKU MBA podcast. I'm your host today. My name is Chen. I'm a Senior Executive Director at the HKU Business School, and I'm a HKU MBA alum. Today, it gives me great pleasure to welcome three of our current MBA students. They are going to be great, exciting speakers. These three students are leading the HKU MBA ESG club as committee members. This ESG club has been launched earlier this year in collaboration between both full-time and part-time students for the first time in our MBA program. We will talk about what's the club's goal, mission, future plan, as well as the ESG approach in this complex business environment. Thank you, Bhavya, Lewis, and Reynald for joining me today and for sharing your insights about ESG. And of course, before we go there, talking about the ESG club, which the three of you have taken the initiative to form. So let me first start by asking you, we of course are very happy, thrilled to have this club. So what kind of made you think about that we should have this club under our MBA program? You three of you come from very different backgrounds. So how did you three come together and to develop this thought that let's go and have the ESG club established under HKU MBA?
Sure, Sachin. So thank you very much for having us. To start with, the initiation of this club was very organic. We had a very organic conversation during one of the leadership talks in HKU MBA program. It was James Root from Bay. The conversation was very organically built because we were discussing about disruptions that day. How is business model getting disrupted? How is technology disrupting the ecosystem? So Bhavya just came up with a question. Yeah, we talk a lot, but how does this happen in real world? We talk a lot about ESG and the disruptions, but what is the actual thing that is driving it? And then me and Lewis came up with something more of a business model, a proposal to making the changes and disruptions. And as we started progressing these conversations, we said, I think we should continue this conversation. The conversation is very meaningful, impactful, and at the same time, we see a lot of value. And this is one of the purpose we come here as a community to build conversations and build insights. So we then approached you and Rose to ask if this is an idea that we can do. And I think HKU being one of the places where you can nurture ideas, it really enabled us to have an opportunity to have more conversations on this topic and also to discuss insights that we had and also questions that we had in common. So it was a beautiful platform to do that. And as I said earlier, it was very organic.
That's great to know. And I'm happy that, both the full-time batch and the part-time batch is well represented in this platform. So let me ask you, what's the club's mission and say goals? Is there anything specific area or anything specific you want to achieve, especially during this academic year?
I can answer these questions. In fact, we founded this ESG club with missions on visions to engage our community to learn, to meet, and to grow. As HKU Business School has been pivoted to becoming a leading academic institution on these subject matters, as a business school students, we really want to position our club as a students that pioneer in the ESG related topics, as well as the bridge builder between businesses and academia. So what we're actually focusing at the moment, firstly, we're going to build a community for those like-minded, passionate students. It's very important for to have a group of people who can share with the vision with you, despite the facts where we always argue, discuss and debate on a number of subject matters, according to each of our own perspectives. But most important, first, we have a community so that we can plan and do something together. And secondly, we want to create an open discussion forum for a platform. Apart from peer learning from each other through discussions, we would like to interview and exchange ideas from experts and specialists coming from different walks of professional life and backgrounds, especially for those industries most relevant to ESG matters. We've been actively reaching out to some of these our own and extended network to invite guest speakers who are willing to share their thoughts and insights with us. It's not only a good way of learning opportunities for our club community, but also a good way for those new channels for these experts to spread their own knowledge and ideas. And last but not least, we're actually aiming to improve the ESG awareness in Hong Kong. As the international financial center, Hong Kong is well positioned to become Asia and China's hub for green finance, impact investing, and fintech. And therefore, we believe that is very crucial for the general public, including the higher education community, to have a deeper understanding of ESG, and so that we can better lead the city's economy into a sustainable future.
That's great to hear. I do hope that this truly becomes a platform where everybody is exchanging their thoughts and ideas about ESG. And I like the idea that it's not just confined to our MBA program or even to the business school, but we are talking about a larger community. And Hong Kong being our home, our city, I'm sure we all can contribute more towards this.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So what's some of the club activities you have been planning? And, more so, what impact or influence do you intend to bring to MBA community through this initiative, or to a much larger community through all these initiatives?
So I'm happy to take this question. So if you see what pandemic has taught us is that it's about valuing our health and our planet. HKU ESG Club wants to create opportunity for its members, personally, academically, and professional development through the club activities. So we have planned a couple of things like workshops, green exchange, eco tours, panel discussion, and various networking and volunteering events. Our plan for this year is, first, we want to host a ESG workshop, and we are going to invite professionals and even our peers who have worked in this space and have done some incredible work to come and talk and share their knowledge with our club members, educate them about the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. While I'm in the UK, I've also reached out to a couple of them who are happy, said, hey, we are happy to join the workshop, or just, give a video bite so that we can tell and spread the awareness. Secondly, we also want to organize guest talks where we're going to reach out to big brands who have done some amazing work and have done some innovations in the business models for a more sustainable ideas. We plan to share this knowledge through our blogs, in-person events, Zoom calls, and maybe once everything resumes, we also want to do in-person events, and everything will be shared through our blog post or podcast and YouTube channel. Lastly, support our members to explore the complexities of global sustainability, gain exposure to emerging business solutions, and encourage them to pursue professional opportunities in green businesses.
That sounds great. I hope the starting point of the ESG workshop goes well, and I think that's a good way to start, where we invite some set of people, executives or people working for NGOs, working with the community, to share their views and give a good idea as a starting point as to what is ESG and how it impacts the societies. So that's great to know. Let's talk about the ESG approach now from a broader perspective. So from the club perspective, can you share with us some latest trends and recent changes in the ESG area, which maybe some of you have noticed?
Sure, I can take this one. So some of the recent trends and changes that we're currently seeing is about how impact investing is getting shape. We also see social responsible investing and green financing taking shape, especially after COVID, and we see a lot of improvements in how this is being done. We see more and more businesses being aligned towards measurable outcomes, either benchmarked against standards like the UN SDG 17. And we also see a lot of trends on the net zero trends. For instance, a lot of technological innovations we see. And I think this is going to be much more scaled up as we move to 2030, 2040, and 2060, as many of these nations have pledged in Paris Climate Accord that they will become net zero. So we would see a lot of transition in terms of both business models to adopt ESG as part of their competitive strategy. And also we would see technology being much more matured in terms of implementing or facilitating these changes, especially like, for instance, the electrical vehicles, the carbon capture technology, and funding for these projects are also going to be one of the major things to drive net zero. And the other thing that we see is Futures 50 startup, where there are a lot of startups coming up, including in Hong Kong. I mean, if you go to Cyberport and see, there are so many startups that are trying to capitalize on these trends. And last but not least, we see a lot of consumer and investor demand for ESG-based funds, ESG-based aligned assets, and ESG-aligned assets continuously outperform the market. And finally, we see about something about the emissions trading, especially in EU, where it creates a lot of opportunity. If you can innovate very well, you can reduce carbon tax, and at the same time, you can also trade your emissions. So this gives a lot of flexibility and also opportunities to grow your business model and also your consumer base, which is becoming much more aware of ESG as a concept.
That's great to know. I think just adding to the trends, of course, the ESG concept is embedded into many of the courses which are offered at HKU MBA, which you are undergoing now. But also the future trend would be that we will be also coming up with some specialized courses, some electives, which will be focusing more and more on ESG. So some of the concepts, what you talked about. So hopefully, yes, it's embedded into many courses, but also some specialized electives would help our community to know about this subject even more.
Sure. I think I would like to highlight one thing, Sachin, as you previously mentioned about the courses. And I think one of the great things that I would like to highlight about the HKU MBA program is that we start with the high performance team after the orientation, where they kind of focus you on saying that it's not just high tech, but high touch. You understand how you think in terms of profit, but also think in terms of planet and also people. So I think it's a really good start that the MBA program starts with this in the orientation. I think we're all set. I think we will be much more equipped as we move through.
That's great to know. So moving on, what would be some important aspects to achieve sustainable future and ESG goals under the complex and a highly competitive business environment?
I'm happy to take this question. I think I really loved what Reynald said, that it's not just high tech, it's more high touch. And it's also good to know, Sachin, that we'll have an elective course. I'm really excited to take on that elective because, as you know, I'm extremely very passionate of ESG, and when the industry that I come from, especially technology, there's a lot of greenwashing that's happening, right? So it's really challenging for businesses how they get into this space. So there's a massive misconception that ESG is a form of CSR activity and that businesses will lose money when they take ESG initiatives and if they adopt sustainable business models. I learned about the concept triple bottom line when I was doing business ethics course, coined in 1994 by John Electon. The central theme behind the phrase is that a company can run so that it can make a profit and enhance the lives of people and the health of the planet. Few things companies can do to adopt a sustainable future and their business models. First thing would be to set ESG goals, show commitment, a real commitment. Make sure the ESG goals are challenging and achievable. They also have to secure team commitments by getting them into workshops, creating awareness, stop greenwashing campaigns, most importantly, implement TBL metrics that can impact many areas of the company's decision-making, educate every staff about the ESG, not just from the corporate side, but how they personally can live a sustainable life. And lastly, welcome feedback, learn, take actions, and grow together.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you on the point that it goes much beyond CSR. It's not something which is just CSR. And also that investing in ESG does not mean that you need to sacrifice your profitability or your revenue. So I think that is something which is holding ground now. A lot of more people have realized that no, actually ESG might be actually contributing towards the growth and the profitability. So hope this continues in the near future. Great. Now, can you share with us some risks and opportunities? I mean, we talked great things about ESG, of course, but some risks and opportunities in the ESG area which you have encountered, you have learned.
I can take these questions related to risk opportunities. It's to simply put, this is too many of them. I would say too many risks, but as well as too many opportunities. I think that one of the biggest risks related to ESG is what Bhavya just mentioned, is like greenwashing. So given the trendiness of this popularity of this ESG topics, a lot of these companies may ironically use ESG to shield and cover up some of their unsustainable activities or un-ESG activities. Given the popularity of this is kind of the slogans across industries, we should be really wary of these companies or these people using ESG for a marketing purpose rather than just doing something substantial. And the second risk we can think of as a highly relevant to us in recent years is the compliance and regulatory risk. In the past, like corporate social responsibility, CSR you just mentioned, used to have a very altruistic, non-business, non-commercial nature. Or in other words, something good to have, but not a must. It's something like it's like doing something good, but not completely business related. But now when we talk about ESG, is on the contrary, is different. There are increasing number of jurisdictions globally where the local regulators, especially in the finance sectors, interestingly, have launched a series of requirements on how the corporate reporting should be like, and how these kind of companies need to draft the strategies and to improve the business models in the areas they're operating, and so forth. Some companies actually have designed this kind of a new mechanism how to measure how ESG compliant is. For example, MSCI is doing their MSG scores for listed companies that you can take reference on. It should be noted that not just the regulators will care about it, but also investors care about the ESG ratings too. Because there's increasing number of evidence showing that the ESG compliant companies tend to outperform those who are not ESG compliant. If you're an investor, you definitely look into this area. You would not ignore the fact that if the companies you're investing is actually polluting the environment as such. Well, we'll look at the bright sides, right? Opportunities. Well, I think one of the opportunities is increasing a number of investment opportunities or investment options. For example, you can see in Hong Kong, Hong Kong government has issued a different series of green bonds to both institutional and retail investors. Now, like people like you and me have the chance to make your investment in this particular field, how to make us a society better, including building new sustainable infrastructures, buildings, and how to make our cities more green and sustainable. And the second opportunity is much led by one of the plays I often discuss with friends, the fintech companies. A lot of people say that fintechs are actually doing the financial and technologies, but actually they're highly relevant to the ESG field, especially in the S of ESG, the social impacts. Why is that? Is because a great number of them actually they're doing something we call it increase the financial inclusions. Financial inclusion means that they're actually creating more accessibilities of banking and financial services to those who are currently underbanked. Having greater access to financial services means that there are more people will be able to reach more development opportunities too, which is great for societies, especially in the developing world. Nowadays, a lot of people, you can't imagine how many people they were actually no longer relying on the traditional banking sectors to seek their finance. Now they have to gain a lot of microcredits, digital wallets, and then they'll start doing their own business. That's pulling millions of them out of poverty. I think this is very exciting, but we'll look more deeply into this particular areas, how the ESGs can be improved going forward too.
Absolutely. I believe that the greatest risk for companies is to not have an ESG policy or a strategy embedded into their overall growth strategy. I think probably that is the biggest risk as of now, because there are so many opportunities, as you have rightly put forward. Now,
Absolutely.
we talked a lot about ESG. My final question to the three of you would be, what's your most enjoyable MBA experience so far?
I'm happy to go first, and then Levis and Reynald can follow up. So I think
Sure.
there's so much to share. The best part of my MBA experience is learning to be a good team player and realizing that living life with purpose makes everything worth it. I just finished business ethics class, and it just gave me a different vision to life. Uh, David said, like, do you know what's your purpose of life? And that made me think in a very different way of how I approach people and how I approach work. Feeling the sense of empowerment that you are not alone, and having the robust HKU MBA community with you will support you in helping you achieve whatever you vision to make a better world is just so empowering. Like, I was so lost in the ESG world. I was just like curious, but then I didn't know how to navigate into that. And then I met these two amazing guys, and they said, hey, you know what? We can do it. And then we got HKU, you and the team to support us. So just like, isn't this so great that you have something and you have people who come along with you, and the community and the management supports you? So that's the best part for me so far with my MBA journey. It's not been too long. It's just been 6 to 7 months, and it's incredible.
Great to know that, Bhavya.
Yeah, I think for me is the diversity of our cohort. It's something I think is the most valuable part of the MBA program. Is that I have met people coming from different backgrounds, not just nationalities, cultures, but also the professional lives. Right, I've met quite a few engineers. I've met people coming from marketing, hospitality, entrepreneurships, etc. It really opened up my eyes to see how this and they share with me a lot about their own perspective and ideas and their understandings about businesses across the world. It's something, honestly, something I really look forward to having from this MBA program, because coming from the background of banking, we also look at things from a financial perspective. But now I have a better, more like a full, better rounded views on everything. I think this is what I've learned the most from my classmates as well as the courses.
That's great to know, Lewis. Yes, I do believe that what you and Bhavya said is right. I think the community at HKU really makes all the difference. How about you, Reynald?
It's a very similar feeling. The very fact that we're having this conversation about topics that we enjoy discussing and we plan to nurture ourselves, that flexibility is what I really enjoy about the HKU MBA. HKU MBA is very holistic platform. It enables you to discover yourself. One of the things I mentioned to you, Sachin, during my interview initially was to reinvent myself. And I really think that has become a possibility. And being able to think in terms of people, planet, rather than just profits is really one of the biggest things. And as Bhavya mentioned about the ethics class, before the class, I used to think, can we do it? How do we do it in terms of technology? But after this, I kind of started to ask myself, should we do it? Is it ethical to do it? What impact does it create? And that's the very enjoyable facet, or that is the key takeaway that I'll be taking out from the program. And also about the case studies, I really have to mention, because in business ethics, we come across a lot of case studies on how exactly do you implement. You can E or S or G. How is this actually happening? Because we have questions like, we see a lot of theoretical stuff, but how is this actually happening in reality? Also, I should highlight one of the things like the executive leadership by Dr. Bani, which also brings a lot of people to introduce to you. For instance, we met Chief Happiness Officer. Do you really need to be productive? You need to make sure your employees are really happy. And I think this is a very enjoyable stuff that we take away, because I think this is the kind of experience we're looking for. This is the real kind of experience, because Sachin, to be very honest with you, I mean, in 2022, number crunching, you have machines and algorithms to do all this, but you cannot replace, like, for instance, empathy and being much more human touch. That's exactly where HKU MBA stands out. It teaches you how to be a better human being when it comes to business, how to be a better leader. That kind of a mold, you will be experiencing it. And I think that is not just a takeaway for this year, but I think it's a lifelong impact that is going to be created. And I think we'll be thinking along these lines as we move ahead in our career.
Reynald, absolutely. I think if any program can bring that self-discovery, and that leads to lifetime of a thought process, which and then you can make an impact on the society, then I think that would be very fulfilling from both from the point of view of the school and of course our community students.
Absolutely.
So that's great to know. Now, I feel great that, the three of you who are very passionate about ESG, who are very motivated about ESG, are leading this club, which we have formed. And I do believe that there are some really great things in store for all of us. And it's great to see leaders like yourself who would be leading us to more empowered and more, I would say, impactful ESG policies in the future. So thank you very much once again for joining this podcast.
Thank you very much, Sachin, for having us.
Thank you so much, Sachin.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure is ours. Bye-bye.